Well, I'll tell you something about him.
And so when people said to me, well, ICT in Trinidad, the first thing I thought to myself is, okay, but do you understand that this is a war for brains? Because that's what it is. My son happens to work for Google, and they live this eternal war for brains. So when in my current position, the question is, what do you do? How do you help this process? Well, you know, we're an access provider. So Peon, go and give some access. Make sure that, you know, folks get in there. What do I mean by that? Well, you don't only look at providing access. You look at what is the disposable income of the lower 50 percentile. Because those are the people that actually need the access so that they can take advantage of ICT. It's about penetration. But it is also about how do they pay for it. Because you see, telephone companies, access providers over the years, we're really good at providing that middle class to upper class side. The thing that has changed has been the mobile revolution. And one thing changed in the mobile revolution that was faster than anything else. It was the fact that we created a prepaid system. So poor people, if you will, were able to obtain the phone, and, which was subsidized. And the second thing they did, they were able to prepay. And therefore, a micropayment system actually occurs within the telecommunication system. So if you say to yourself, what you need to do is you need to provide access, and what you need to do is to provide access to those folks that have less means, then the question really is, okay, let's follow the mobile method, right? Now, the issue really here is, you have to have a computer of some kind or access of some kind. It could be on the phone. It could be one of the three screens of your life. It could be in the phone. It could be on a computer, or it could be on the TV. So which one do you do? And what kind of bandwidth does this require? Those are really the fundamental questions as to how to deal with this thing. There is another side, which is the cultural development. The cultural development, if you look at what has transpired, for example, in the U.S., the East Coast, you know, around Boston, around Washington, you had a lot of development because you have a lot of universities, particularly IT-based universities. You think about like MIT, or if you go and you sit and you look at the other coast. In the other coast, then you have Stanford, and you have some of these other universities. And what has transpired there is they've been able to create a culture of innovation. But it is not only the culture of innovation that matters. What matters is something so intangible that I have not necessarily seen in many less developed countries. The willingness to give money to people that they may fail. That is very hard. That is very, very hard for anybody, for any government in particular, or particularly for the private sector. So if you say to yourself, well, I am going to go ahead and I'm going to create a culture of innovation, you definitely have to have the educational institutions, but you also have to have the willingness of a capital market that says, I will go ahead and invest. And I will bet on you. I will bet on your talent. And talent, folks, is not technology per se. Talent is about marketing. Talent is about saying that this is not just a market in the country, it is a worldwide market, because after all, that's what the worldwide does. So, you know, from my perspective, when I look at it as an access provider, the mission that I look at is try to provide access to the greatest number of people at the lowest possible price. And that does mean at times subsidizing devices. That means at times, especially in a competitive situation, that whatever it is you're going to do, somebody else is going to copy. But the question is, try to get ahead. The third point that I would like to make is, this is an industry where the change of the capital structure is moving even faster every day. What does that mean? Is you have to continue investing because you go from one technology to the next technology to the next technology. And it used to be that you could spend millions and take 15 years to get your return. That return is going down to 5, to 4, to 3, and you yourselves face it when you buy a computer and, you know, a few months later somebody else comes something much better, and then a year later you change it. Well, in this industry we have the same phenomenon. So this is a capital investment industry which actually its timetables are shrinking in terms of where do you get the return. So you get two ends. On the one end, you actually have to penetrate further, and on the other end, you actually have to invest more, which is an interesting quagmire. And it's not, I'm not talking about TST, I'm talking to everybody. Anybody that's looking into the business is looking at that. So to summarize, ICT is critical for any country, whether developing or developed, but it is a war of brains. And the infrastructure created from the legal perspective to attract the investment is absolutely critical. And I believe that that is one of the things that ought to be discussed and ought to be put forward. Because if you're competing for brains, you really want to make it easy for brains to do business. And you also want to make it easy for your infrastructure, your financial infrastructure, to allow people to fail. Because if out of 10 folks, 8 may fail, but 2 may make it very big. Thank you very much.
Very good.
Thank you very much, sir. Our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, is the Executive Vice President for Government Business at Fujitsu Caribbean. She is described to us as an IT industry veteran with extensive career in the field, and this has included operations management, consulting, and executive leadership with international and regional IT service providers, major local and US-based corporate entities spanning over 20 years. Ms. Frances Correira.
Good morning, and let me just start by saying that 20 years is in no way indicative of my age. Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and with all protocols being observed, I'm going to use the next 5 minutes to pick apart my own presentation and research here, because unfortunately one of the disadvantages of presenting last is that everyone else has spoken about your own ideas. But I'm hoping at least that I can pick apart and be innovative with my own presentation and pick apart and share with you some real practical takeaway things that I, as an ICT practitioner and a leader in this industry, troubles me for many years. And let's just start with what ICT means to us as an industry. It's more than just an industry that feeds ICT industries. It is how you use ITC to facilitate business and growth in economies. And that's not a small market by any means. And in fact, the McKinsey research of 2008 shows that the ICT services industry is going to be a 500 billion industry. And that's a 2008 research. By now, it's much larger than that. So, and what does that mean in terms of development? Other studies show that that is inextricably linked. Your investment in ICT is inextricably linked to your national development. We cannot get away from it any longer. So this is not optional whether we do this. You know, this is as fundamental as food and water and shelter. Okay, maybe not food and water, but certainly shelter. You know, it is as foundational as that today. So let's accept this. This is not going away, and we have to get this right. But in the Caribbean, we've had many start and stops. We've had many great initiatives, and we just don't seem to be getting through that ceiling, you know. And so I stop and I ask myself, well, why? Why do we not seem to have been able to make that mark? There are many reasons why we, you know, and we could discuss that further. But if I could focus on the things that haven't been discussed as yet, that National ICT Strategic Plan and the initiatives on innovation, and so I absolutely commend and I look forward to the next 5-year plan. I look forward to this plan, however, as being one that is all-inclusive and having really focused on all sectors of the economy and you know, the people, the citizens of the country. That's not an easy thing to do, but there are several models. We have lots of the work done already, and I'm just saying, let's get down, take the action and get it done quickly. Because as Dr. Datta had explained earlier, if you don't get that, then building your house after that means you have a weak foundation. So I'm saying, Let us move quickly to get that plan in place so that we could all be on board with this and carry the mantra forward. And I know it's not an easy task, but the watchword here is let's execute, and let's execute quickly, being all inclusive. Right? The next thing after that is that the ICT industry themselves, all of us in this room here, must be held accountable for our constant posturing. Yes, okay, I may be upsetting a few people, but we're a small society, a small country, a small economy. We need to be collaborating, genuinely collaborating, to accelerate our economic development on the global stage. So if we are not talking to ourselves and genuinely sitting down and pulling together joint ventures that are innovative for the citizens of the country, and then that is marketable internationally, then we are fooling ourselves that we will really use ICT for global growth and national development. A couple real things that we can, initiatives that have been humming that we need to accelerate, I think, to get us to that point. We have the e-Tech Park, we have the Tamina Tech Park. So we have potential business incubators, cyber parks that I feel are humming there, and we have not begun to explode as yet the potential in those things. All right? So because our markets are small, I suggest that we look for what is our niche. Let us use our creativity, our talent in the arts, in the music. Let us go to the communities and make sure that ICT National Development Plan thinks about those talents that we bring to the table. Okay? And because my time is short, and it's a good thing I didn't have to read the speech, let me just leave you three key things, three key messages that I'd like to leave with us. Inclusion, that we must act and we must measure. We're not very good at measuring that we have achieved what we said we would set out to achieve. So I hope that that has shared with you, a different twist on things, because otherwise I'd be repeating what everybody else has already said. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Correrio. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you that in the experience that I've had with doing stuff like this is probably the most excellent panel that I've ever sat with, because of the fact that a couple of the people here came to the podium this morning protesting with the time that they were told that they were going to get. Mm-hmm. But I want to tell you that all of them kept within that limited time. That says that these are people who are serious about the business that they are in, and they want to get action. I take Mr. Pion's phrase when he started saying that he can't be faulted for knowing what to do. He has a problem with saying it too straight, and sometimes that is not such a bad thing. And again, this is a very business-like exercise we're dealing with. It's easy to do this because the interactive session that will follow now, it is almost totally scripted to keep the presentations on focus from up here and from in the audience. For instance, there are some questions that you all are going to be challenged to address as you seek to get the information you want, such as, is an environment for innovation being fostered in Trinidad and Tobago? How do ICT and innovation relate to development objectives? And how can ICT impact the lives of the citizens in Trinidad and Tobago? What are the potential innovation generation models that can be implemented, both in the public and private sectors? And what drivers are needed for greater innovation in the sectors? As you get ready to ask your questions and get involved in the interactive session, and you know that when you get up to speak, just say who you are and who you may be representing if that is the case.